There's one thing that is absolutely imperative to your success as a musician that I can almost guarantee you aren't doing enough. And of course, it's long tones. It's practicing. It's scales. Just kidding. It isn't actually any of those things, though I would say maybe long tones would be one, and if you've seen my video do long tones, then you'll understand how important I think long tones are. But actually the thing that I wanted to talk about today is something completely different from that, and something that doesn't even really have to do with playing the instrument or like getting out the instrument to practice. And what it actually is listening. Listening is one of the absolutely most important things that we should be doing as musicians, not just clarinetists and not just classical clarinetists, but really musicians of any kind. It is absolutely imperative to be listening to lots of different recordings, going to live concerts and hearing people play, and just listening a lot to get an idea of what you want to sound like. It's so easy to forget about how important it is to listen because we're really caught up and wrapped up in like actually practicing and doing your long tones and scales and all of those great things. But if you don't know what you want to sound like and you don't spend time to listen to different recordings and concerts, then you're not really going to know like what your goal is. So you could be like practicing away, doing all your scales, etudes, everything, and really practicing and maybe getting better, but if you don't have a goal for what you want to sound like and a goal for the kind of music that you want to make, then it won't be nearly as efficient the time that you put in practicing. It's super important to know what you want to sound like so you have something to aim at, so when you're practicing you're always trying to recreate the sounds that you've heard and make better and better sounds with that sort of goal from like what you've listened to and what you imagine a great sound to be. The other benefit of listening is it actually teaches you a lot about music too. So I've already talked about how listening is really good to get an idea of what you want to sound like, but listening is also really good so you can get an idea of how music goes and how phrases work. The more you practice and the more you listen and the more you get involved in doing music, the more you'll start to understand sort of like the fundamental, like almost laws of music, of the way phrases work, the way cadences happen, the way melodies and harmonies interact, and the way an ensemble should be balanced. All of those things are really sort of strict rules that have been established over a long playing tradition, but they're not really written down anywhere too much, and it's almost really hard to understand how to do these things just by like reading them or hearing a video about it. The only way to learn the intricacies of phrasing and how notes should lead to each other and be connected, and how phrases should finish and how we work breathing into playing, all of that stuff, the best way to learn it is just by listening to professionals do it and see what sounds good and then try to recreate that for yourself. So what should you be listening to? I think a really great first step, and a really easy first step, is just listening to recordings. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of different recordings of just clarinet players and clarinet solos. There's even more recordings of different kinds of solo instruments, solo voice, large ensembles, small ensembles, really like it's so amazing the era that we live in that it's so easy to get so many different recordings of music. So you have like no excuse to not be listening to music just all the time and sort of getting in your head that sound and the way music works. So my first recommendation would be to find some recordings that you like, both of like solo clarinet, different clarinetists, chamber music and small ensembles, again, can be clarinet focused or maybe like woodwind quintet, some solo music of different instruments, and especially vocalists, because the voice is sort of the most natural instrument, and vocalists tend to be really good at having lots of musical ideas and musical phrasing, and having like words going with it helps with the phrasing too, so you can use that as a benefit. And then I would also include large ensemble recordings, so maybe orchestra and maybe even bands. So we have solo clarinet, chamber music, clarinet, and other instruments, solo music, other instruments, and solo music, voice, and then large ensembles. Those would be sort of like the 5 recordings. I would just compile that into a playlist, find some of your favorites, comment down below with some of your favorite recordings that you love listening to because of their musicality or because of some great sound, and maybe I'll put together a playlist eventually too, so check out the comments for that, and just play this playlist like when you're getting ready in the morning, when you're in the car, and get used to listening to music more. Of course, all of those that I just mentioned tend to fall under a more like classical style, but even if you're doing jazz or klezmer or any other style, listening is equally important because especially with jazz, it's like oral tradition. So the way that it's been learned and passed down is just by listening, purely listening. Of course, there are like some people who have written down jazz pieces and some like larger jazz ensembles that do like read music when they play, but largely the jazz tradition is all based like orally, so just hearing other people playing and then imitating that, and that's like the best way to learn it. So of course, I'm mainly focusing on like the classical tradition and learning through listening for classical music purposes and like orchestral playing or band playing. But it's almost even more important for the other styles. So no matter what style of clarinet playing you're going for, listening is extremely important. Great, I think that's all I have to say about listening. Just make sure that you're doing it. Don't get too caught up in practicing, even though that's extremely important as well. But spend some time to listen so you have a goal to aim your practice at. And go ahead and comment down below what are some of your favorite recordings. And maybe I'll put together a playlist, so look in the comments for that as well. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to press the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get the notifications, find us on Facebook like QuickStart Clarinet over there, and most importantly, go down in the description below and click the link to join the official QuickStart Clarinet community, where you'll get tips and tricks by email and you can see what we have for courses and all of that other great online content that we have to help you learn to play clarinet. So happy listening, and I will see you in another video.